Hello students, welcome to AIMS India online classes. This is a chemistry session. Here we are discussing about fiber to fabric chapter. Let us see the introduction part from this. As we know, the basic necessities for human beings are food, shelter and clothing, isn't it? These three are the basic necessities for the survival of human beings. Among them, food gives us energy for doing works, so it is must. And even shelter, it protects us from different natural atmospheric conditions like sunlight, rains, cold. From these all, a shelter protects us. Along with this, the basic necessity, one of them is clothes. Clothes guard our body from external environment. They protect us from insect bite, and they make us good look also, looking good also, isn't it? Clothes protect us from the external environment, like they protect us from the coolness or cold in winters, and they protect us from the hot sunlight, and even they protect us from the rains. So in this way, clothes guard our body from the external environments, and even they protect us from the biting of insects. Even they give us good looking, isn't it? Depending upon the climate of the place, people wear different clothes. Yes, based upon the climate of the place, people in different areas they wear different kinds of clothes. So clothes are made up of different types of materials. So suppose if you see the people who are living in very cool areas, very cold countries, they wear the clothes which are made up of very thick clothes which give them warmthness. And the people who are living in very hot areas like desert areas, they wear very thin clothes which will be very free, with very free clothes they will wear. And even they wear the clothes which can absorb moist very easily. In that way, based upon the climatic conditions of a place, the clothes worn in that area will be different. And clothes are made up of different types of materials. We are telling here people in different areas where the different climatic conditions are there. They wear different clothes. Here, these different clothes are made from different materials. For example, cotton saree is made from cotton, which is obtained from plants. Leather jacket is made from leather, which is derived from the animals, animal skin. And sweater is made from wool, that means the hair of sheep and these all. In this way, different cloths are made from different materials which are used for different purposes. History of clothing, let us see from the historic age, from prehistoric age, how these cloths were started being used. In the beginning of, let us see here, in the beginning of civilization, people used bark, leaves, and animal fur as clothes at the starting days. So, being apart from the animals, so these human beings they started using after the starting of this civilization. People started to use bark, leaves, animal fur as clothes at the starting days, at the beginning of this civilization. And when people settled down as farmers, they used woven vines and animal fleece as cloths. So animal fleece and woven vines they have started to use as clothes when they started to settle down as farmers, when they started cultivation. Later on, in the next stage, flax and cotton were woven into clothes. In those times, people just draped the fabric to cover themselves. So at the starting of this making of cloths, when they learned how to weave these cloths, they woven the cloths and they have just draped the fabric into to cover themselves. They don't know how to stitch at the starting days. How we are using nowadays shirts. They didn't use like that because they don't know stitching at that time. That's why just cloths are woven and just they are draped on the skin just to cover themselves. People started wearing stitched clothes only after the needle was invented. So after discovery, after the invention of this needle, they have started to stitch the cloths. But before that, they came to know how to weave the cloths, but they didn't know how to stitch the cloths. That is why, after weaving the cloths directly, they are used by draping on the to cover just to cover them. Even today also, nowadays also in older countries like India, we see people wearing unstitched garments like turbans, saris, and dhotis, isn't it? Even nowadays also we see these lungis, dhotis, saris. These all are directly used without stitching, isn't it? But nowadays mostly the clothes are we are using which are stitched. Of course, unstitched clothes also being used, but this stitching was started after the invention of needle only. Before that, almost all the clothes they were used directly. It is believed that wool was the first animal fiber to be made into cloth. So, at the earlier they have started to weave cloths from animal plant fibers, but it is believed that first animal fiber made is woolen fiber, that is from the hair of sheep. People started using sheep for wool about 6000 years ago itself. Means at the time itself they have grown sheep to get their hair and to weave into cloths, woolen cloths. After people began to settle in the agricultural communities, they learned to weave twigs and grass into mats and baskets. Vines and animal fleece or hair were twisted together into long strands. These were woven into fabric. So after people began to settle in the agricultural communities, then they have started to learn about weaving clothes. First, they have started with grass and even they started weaving twigs and grass into mats. They would weave these grass and twigs into baskets, mats and baskets. So vines and animal fleece or hair were twisted together into long strands. These long strands were woven into fabrics. So from this fabric, they started using making cloths. Okay, thousands of years ago, people learned how to obtain fibers from wild plants. These fibers were spun into thread and made into cloths. Okay, these fibers are spun into threads and these threads made into cloths. Okay, first from the plants they have derived fiber. These fibers are spun into threads, small threads, long threads. These threads are made into cloths. Archaeologists have discovered fragments of plant fibers in Switzerland which date back to around 8000 BC. So indeed it indicates that people began to weave fabrics around in 8000 BC itself. So see, people were started to use these fabrics even in the 8000 BC itself. So some pieces of fragments of plant fibers were observed, found in Switzerland. So from this, we can assume that peoples they have started to weave cloths from the plant fiber in the 8000 BC itself. Early Indian wore cotton fabric. In India, cotton grow in the regions near Ganga and Krishna, even Godavari too, isn't it? Flax is a plant that gives natural fiber. So we can say these two are plant fibers. Cotton fiber and flax fiber. These were used at the starting days. In the early Indians, they have started making fiber or fabric from these two, cotton and flax. From the cotton we know from cotton birds, cotton fiber is derived. From this cotton fabric is made and cloths are woven with that, isn't it? And in the same way, flax is also plant fiber. Flax is actually a plant that gives natural fiber flax from its bark. So, in this way, in the earlier days of Indian civilization, people started to weave cloths from these two natural fibers, cotton and flax. Even in Egypt, also in ancient times, cotton as well as flax were cultivated near River Nile. So, there also they have started with the civilization at the starting days. They have used to make these cloths from cotton and flax only, even in Egypt also. Okay. Now let us see what are the different types of fabrics. How many types of fabrics are available? We use fabrics as a shield to protect ourselves from the different weather conditions, isn't it? We use different kinds of fabric at different weather conditions. So along with the production, clothes can also be a symbol of beauty and status, isn't it? We use different kinds of clothes at different situations, at functions and in the celebration of festivals. We use good-looking clothes, isn't it? So they give beauty and even status also. The clothes not only protecting us from the weather conditions, they give beauty and status. How these clothes protect us from the weather conditions? Suppose in winter we use cloths which thick cloths which are made from woolen. They give warmth to the skin. In that way, they protect us from the cold. And in the summer, if you see, we use cotton cloths. They will be very thin, and the airflow will be there in the cotton cloths. And even they absorb sweat very easily. And hence, we will feel very comfort with the cotton cloths in the summer. In this way, cloths will protect us from the weather conditions, different weather conditions. Not only that, they give us uh, also be a symbol of beauty and status. Choice of fabric may vary from person to person. Somebody may like to wear clothes made up of light, thin, shiny fabrics, and some other people they may like to wear clothes that are bright colored or made up of coarse fabric, isn't it? So that depends upon the person to person. Choice of fabrics may vary from one to one. Fabrics for casual and formal wear may be different, isn't it? Casual wear for fabric will be different, and formal wear fabric also will be different. Personal choice and the cost of fabric are important factors in the selection of the perfect fabric. Yes, these two are very important. Personal choice. So, what kind of fabric we like? It is one. And the cost of fabric also one of the factors which which import the selection of the perfect fabric to suit us. So in this way, the selection of fabric, the choice of fabric will be varying from person to person, and even based upon the climatic conditions also, the choosing of the choice of cloth or fabric will be different. The people who are living in very hot areas, they cannot choose woolen clothes because they give more warmthness. They cannot feel comfort with those. So the people who are living in those hot areas, they prefer light colored and cotton fabrics which give more comfort. And the people who are living in very cold areas, they prefer woolen clothes which gives warmth to the skin. They cannot choose these thin fabrics like cotton and these all because they won't protect them from the coolness. In this way, the choice of fabric will be varied from person to person and the place where the climatic changes are being different. Okay, and even the cost also one of the factors which affects because all the people they cannot buy the costly fabric. Okay, based upon our conditions, we use different fabrics. Our purpose and the properties of a fabric together determines which type of fabric can be used for each purpose. Coarse fabrics can be used for mopping and making of gunny bags, but it cannot be used for making clothes, isn't it? It won't give much comfort and won't be good looking also. This gauze fabric can be used only for making mopping sticks, mopping cloths, and even gunny bags also. But this cannot be used for making cloths, isn't it? And some other properties will have to be considered for choosing cotton fabric. This fabric cannot be used for making curtains. Some other properties to be considered in choosing the fabric which is used for making of curtains. So in this way, the purpose and the properties of fabric together determines the type of fabric which can be used for each purpose. Okay. Next, cotton fabrics are somewhat thicker than polyester fabric. Isn't it? Polyester fabric will be very thin. So these polyester fabrics are most comfortable in the rainy seasons because even though they get wet, immediately they will be dried off. They won't absorb much water. Whereas cotton fabric or coarse cotton fabric are heavier. After washing, cotton cloths will get wrinkled. Yes, whereas polyester cloths or polyester fabric, they won't get wrinkled even after washing number of times also. But whereas cotton fabric or cotton cloths, they will be wrinkled after washing. They should be ironed before using again. But whereas polyesters, they won't get wrinkled. Wrinkle free they are called. So they can be used number of times even after washing also because they won't get wrinkled. And even silk fabric is smooth to touch, whereas woolen cloths are somewhat heavier than silk fabric. Silk fabric will be thin and very smooth and comfort. But whereas woolen clothes are somewhat heavier and thick than silk fabric. So what are these fabric made up of? With which material these fabrics are made up of? When you look at a fabric, any fabric, it appears to be a single and continuous piece, isn't it? Observe one cloth piece. If you look at it directly, it appears like a single and continuous piece. But if you look at it very closely, we notice there are thread-like structures in the fabric. Have you ever observed? Try to observe once the cloth. If you observe it, it seems like a small single piece. But you observe with the keen observation very closely, then we can observe thread-like structures in the fabric. These threads are also called as yarn. See, it is a cloth and it is seen through the microscope here, the magnifying glass very closely, then we can see these thread-like fabric, thread-like structures, isn't it? These thread-like structures are called as yarn. So, fabric is made up of yarn. The end of the yarn is separated into thin strands. This thin strand of thread is made up of still thinner strands. These thinner strands are called fibers. So these fibers are obtained from the different sources. So these fibers are twisted to get yarn. These yarn are woven into fabric. So in this way, we are getting every fabric is made up of yarn and every yarn is made up of fiber. Now we can say if it is a, for example, if it is a cotton fabric, it is made up of cotton yarn, which is derived from cotton fiber. Okay, this is the pattern. First, fiber is obtained from different sources. For example, if you see here cotton fiber is obtained from cotton plants that will be spun into yarn. Those we can say strands. So fiber is spun into yarn. These yarn are woven together to get fabric. This is a process occurs. This fabric is used to make different clothes by cutting and stitching it. In that way, we get clothes from the fiber which is obtained from different sources. These fibers are collected from the sources like animals and plants. These are spun into yarn. These yarn are woven together or knitted together to get fabric. This fabric you used for making clothes. This is the process occurs. See, for example, as we have seen here, cotton. First, cotton is collected from cotton plugs. Have you seen these cotton plugs from the cotton plants? Yes, this white part is collected. This is cotton fiber. This cotton fiber is spun into cotton yarn. So it is collected like this cotton yarn. So this cotton yarn used to make cotton fabric. Okay, this is the process occurs. First, your fiber is collected from the plants and animals from the different sources. This fiber is spun into yarn, and this yarn is woven or knitted into fabric. This fabric used for making clothes. Okay, this is about fibers. Thank you for watching our video. Please subscribe our YouTube channel Aims Today and visit our website aimstoday.in for latest updates on recorded videos.